Many have been discounting the significance of this first Republican presidential debate due to the fact that the leading candidate, Donald Trump, was not present. I see the point. However, I still think this was a very important event as it laid out the main issues you will have to address if you want to compete for this nomination. Now, some thought without Trump, this event would lack fireworks. I assure you that was not the case. I have to give kudos to Vivek Ramaswamy for preventing the conversation from wallowing safely within the confines of establishment orthodoxy. He really pushed the envelope in a direction that makes elites squirm and regular people cheer.
Let us be honest as Republicans. I'm the only person on the stage who isn't bought and paid for, so I can say this. The climate change agenda is a hoax. The climate change agenda is a hoax. And we have to declare independence for it. And the reality is, the anti-carbon agenda is the wet blanket on our economy. And so the reality is, more people are dying of bad climate change policies than they are of actual climate change.
Don't let what sounds like booze fool you. This crowd is not full of regular people. Personally, I agree. Carbon-caused climate change is a hoax. Actually, hoax isn't the word I would use. It's a tool that the elite are using to advance a particular agenda. When you delve into researching this topic, it becomes very clear that the apparent scientific consensus was achieved over decades through systematic punishment of carbon-caused warming skeptics and systematic rewards for those who supported the preferred narrative. But that's for another video. So this was probably my favorite moment of the debate. That being said, I think the bought and paid for statement was a bit of a misstep here. It probably accounted for at least some of those boos. If you tone that down a bit and say something like, I'm not beholden to elite donors, I think that plays better. I myself like Ron DeSantis. I respect what he's done as governor of Florida. He's been the most effective conservative office holder in the country over the past few years. I could definitely be won over to support Vivek, as I like some of his policy positions better. His position on Ukraine, for instance. However, that doesn't mean I'll stop appreciating the conservative efforts of Ron DeSantis. So when you attack him as bought and paid for, it feels a little bit like you're attacking my judgment. So I would tone that down, especially when you're going after a popular candidate. I think you can get away with it with a less popular candidate, and we'll see that a bit later. So how did the rest of the debate play out? Well, many drew blood, many were wounded, but only one was truly slayed. Welcome back to Shadow Wreckardz, home of independent journalism for the people. If you find yourself enjoying this content, please hit that like button. Consider subscribing to the channel. I'm Scott. Let's continue. I'll get my high-level assessment out of the way first. I thought the best overall performance belonged to Vivek Ramaswamy. It wasn't without a misstep or two, which I mentioned earlier, but in my opinion, he outperformed the field. He also had some of the most memorable moments.
So first, let me just address a question that is on everybody's mind at home tonight. Who the heck is this skinny guy with a funny last name, and what the heck is he doing in the middle of this debate stage? I'll tell you, I'm not a politician, Brett. You're right about that. I'm an entrepreneur. My parents came to this country with no money 40 years ago. I have gone on to found multi-billion-dollar companies. I did it while marrying my wife, Apurva, raising our 2 sons, following our faith in God. That is the American dream. And I am genuinely worried that that American dream will not exist for our 2 sons and their generation unless we do something about it. And I do think Brett is going to take an outsider, because for a long time we have professional politicians in the Republican Party who have been running from something. Now is our moment to start running to something, to our vision of what it means to be an American today.
And when you're trying to break into the conversation for President of the United States, that's important. If anyone thought he wasn't a serious contender before this debate, they've probably changed their mind. And it wasn't simply due to his confidence and comfort on the debate stage, which was evident, but also due to his confidence and comfort with his own positions. Everyone else looked like they had multiple advisors in their head from time to time. You know, calculating, what can I say, what should I not say? Caught between their actual beliefs and what they've been told they're allowed to express. Vivek's advantage was knowing what he believes and not being afraid to express it. He delivered many of the wounds I mentioned earlier. Now, if you're familiar with Vivek, You may have expected those wounds to be inflicted by intelligently articulated positions, quick-witted comebacks, and superb conversational framing. And many did. But two of the biggest came with no words at all.
If former President Trump is convicted in a court of law, would you still support him as your party's choice? Please raise your hand if you would.
Everyone other than Vivek took a hit in this moment, especially DeSantis. He actually looks around before raising his hand. Not a good look. Regardless of how you feel about Donald Trump, indecision never inspires confidence. And here again,
is there anyone on stage who would not support the increase of more funding to Ukraine?
I would not support it.
Europe needs to step up. I would have Europe step up and do their job.
Mr. Ramaswamy.
Again, Vivek appears to be the only candidate who has the courage to stand by his convictions. And I think he's on the right side of it. More and more populist-minded voters are over these forever wars. Yes, you did fool us with WMDs, but now we've become a little wiser to this game. We don't believe Putin is plotting to take over the world, and the gaslighting to that effect from Mike Pence and Nikki Haley just isn't landing. Probably why their poll numbers are so low. Now, Ron DeSantis, this message is for you. You once categorized this conflict as a territorial dispute. I think you were on the right track, and it's clear that you still kind of believe that. Get authentic on this issue or suffer some losses. That aside, I do think DeSantis had the second best performance of the debate. Now, when I talk about performance, I'm talking about how it's going to play out in the polls. Establishment candidates like Nikki Haley and establishment attack dogs like Asa Hutchinson and Christie are really no factor. They could walk on water in one of these debates, and it wouldn't make a darn bit of difference. Let's take a quick look at where I think DeSantis struggled and where I think he shined. Here's some of his opening statement.
Our country is in decline. This decline is not inevitable, it's a choice. We need to send Joe Biden back to his basement and reverse American decline. And it starts with understanding we must reverse Bidenomics so that middle-class families have a chance to succeed again. We cannot succeed as a country if you are working hard and you can't afford groceries, a car, or a new home, while Hunter Biden can make hundreds of thousands of dollars on lousy paintings. That is wrong.
I thought the content of the statement was not spectacular, but fine. The problem was his delivery. I'm reminded of a situation that happens in my own life. If you subscribe to the channel, you may know that I play golf. Not very well, but it's something that I enjoy. And often when I'm trying to improve, I'll watch a bunch of YouTube videos for swing tips. Tuck your elbow, roll your foot, flatten your wrist. All very helpful tips when I go to the range and practice them. However, when I get out on the course to actually play and I'm on that first tee, if I have all those swing thoughts up in my head, I can't relax, I can't swing natural, and inevitably, my first tee shot is a disaster. DeSantis looks like he's getting a lot of advice from a lot of different people, and he's got too many swing thoughts in his head. Thankfully, he was able to appear more relaxed as the night went on, and did especially well when tackling an issue with which he could authentically connect.
Governor DeSantis, you signed a 6-week abortion ban in Florida. One of your biggest financial backers said that you need to, quote, shift to get moderates or you will lose. What do you say to him and others who say politically that is a tough thing to sell nationally?
Well, I would say we sold the biggest election landslide victory in the history of the Republican Party in the state of Florida in 2022. That's what I did. We can win. But second of all, look, you got to do what you think is right. I believe in a culture of life. I was proud to sign the heartbeat bill. I remember one of the most impactful moments of my life was when I heard the heartbeat of my oldest daughter in my wife's womb and then saw the sonograms of all 3 of my kids. What the Democrats are trying to do on this issue is wrong, to allow abortion all the way up to the moment of birth. I'm going to stand on the side of life. Look, I understand Wisconsin is going to do it different than Texas. I understand Iowa and New Hampshire are going to do different. But I will support the cause of life as governor and as president.
Now, is that an issue that will play well in the general election? I don't know. But that authentic delivery is where he shines. He showed it again when talking about the border.
President of the United States, your first obligation is to defend our country and its people. And that means you're sending all this money, but you're not doing what we need to do to secure our own border. We have tens of thousands of people who are being killed because we're not handling both. And so I am going to declare it a national emergency. I'm not going to send troops to Ukraine, but I am going to send them to our southern border. When these drug pushers are bringing fentanyl across the border, that's going to be the last thing they do. We're going to use force, and we're going to leave them stone cold dead.
And when talking about crime,
these hollowed out cities, this is a symptom of America's decline. And one of the biggest reasons is because you have George Soros funding these radical left-wing district attorneys. They get into office and they say they're not going to prosecute crimes they disagree with. The inmates start running the asylum. There's one guy in this entire country that's ever done anything about that. Me. When we had two of these district attorneys in Florida elected with Soros funding who said they wouldn't do their job, I removed them from their posts. They are gone.
Where he seems to struggle is dealing with issues where he can't be completely authentic. Perhaps one of his biggest strengths is also one of his biggest weaknesses. He's an honest guy by nature. That's my take. An honest guy in a dishonest business. Many politicians can lie effortlessly. He can't, and I don't want to see him try. I'd rather see him ignore his advisors and express what he truly believes. The donor class may not reward you, but the American people will. Now, Vivek took a few minor wounds as well, at the hands of Mike Pence, Christie, and Nikki Haley.
Vivek, if we do the giveaway that you want to give to Putin to give him his land, it's not going to be too long before he rolls across a NATO border, and frankly, our men and women of our armed forces are going to have to go and fight him.
Wait, hold on.
I've had enough. I've had enough already tonight of a guy who sounds like ChatGPT standing up here.
Problem that Vivek doesn't understand is he wants to hand Ukraine to Russia. He wants to let China eat Taiwan. He wants to go and stop funding Israel. You don't do that to friends. What you do instead.
The good news is they're all seen as establishment Republicans who have very little chance of winning the nomination. Against his true competition, he was untouched. He also managed to inflict quite a few wounds on those establishment candidates, including this moment where he absolutely slays the anti-Trump dragon, Christie.
To get in and respond, let's just speak the truth, okay? President Trump, I believe, was the best president of the 21st century. It's a fact. And Christie, honest to God, your claim that Donald Trump is motivated by vengeance and grievance would be a lot more credible if your entire campaign were not based on vengeance and grievance against one man. And if people at home want to see a bunch of people blindly bashing Donald Trump without an iota of vision for this country, they could just change the channel to MSNBC right now. But I'm not running for president of MSNBC. I am running for president of the United States. We're skating on thin ice, and we cannot set a precedent where the party in power uses police force to indict its political opponents. It is wrong. We have to end the weaponization of justice in this country.
I would imagine that for most people, that was the highlight of the night. And I'm looking forward to the next one. And that's how I see it, my friends. Please leave a comment. I'd love to hear your perspective. Hit the like button if you've enjoyed the content. Consider subscribing to the channel. See you soon.